Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. How you doing? Welcome to Thursday. At least here in Arizona, the kids getting ready to go back to school. Some of them have already started. I think today a lot of schools are having their first day, getting back to normal. The dog days of summer upon us. Super hot. We had a great July. We really did. Had a lot of rain. Unfortunately, didn't help in the right places, but had a lot of rain, had cool temperatures. That's all gone. We're back to regular Arizona. Yesterday I was in my car and it said 117 degrees. That's a little warm out there. So put the sunscreen on, crack those windows, and put your crock pot in your car while you're at work, and by the time you're done working, it should be good to go. Yeah, allamericangold.com, that is the website. Of course, our toll-free number, as I said, 800-951-0592, the physical delivery of wealth insurance. It is what we do. We had jobless claims today. Big number still, 385,000. That's right about the 4-week average. They were pretty excited about the fall in the number of people with the government. You know, we have multiple unemployment buckets, but the easy bucket, which is, you know, people that have lost their job recently and are continuing to file. That number finally broke below 3 million, which, that's good. No doubt. But that number's normally like, a little over 1 million, between 1 and 2 million. This one below 3 million. The problem is 13 million people still getting all of this emergency stuff and all that. And I don't think any of these new lockdown measures in certain states are going to help. I don't. Obviously, New York City, I called my mom yesterday. And I said, hey, what about, because I'm an upstate, for those of you that don't know, I was born and raised upstate New York in Syracuse. And go Orange, by the way. So I gave my mom a call, and I said, what's happening there? My mom lives in Onondaga County in upstate New York. And she said, yeah, I'm going to have to carry around my vaccination card. And I said, well, I heard about New York City. Is that happening here? She said, not yet, but they're warning us that that's coming, that eventually, but at least from my mom's perspective, a lot of places, if you want to gain entry, you're going to have to show that you've been vaccinated. And again, it's really ironic. I guess we always talked about, Matt, showing your papers and all this stuff and freedom and I don't know. I'm not an expert. I heard Fauci talking again, and this time about some other variant that maybe the vaccine's not going to work on. Booster shots. The WHO came out and said, hey, listen, we don't want you to do the booster shots because the poor countries still haven't gotten their shots. And I don't know. The only thing that I know is it's a coronavirus, which means it's kind of like a flu, and I would call this a high-powered flu that changes. So, are we going to be every year or every 2 years, doing well? Maybe it's just like the flu shot. Is that what's coming, right? And of course, we know. The flu shot, they try to guess, and they normally don't guess right. And I don't know. It's just gotten really crazy, right? This isn't. I don't have the words really to understand why we aren't resisting this as a country. But again, with the media the way it is, and the education system the way it is, I have 2 boys in college. And I will tell you, both of them got the Johnson & Johnson shot. because we fought it as long as we could. And it just came down to, we left the decision to our kids, but they weren't going to be allowed on campus, period. And unfortunately, the courts have been siding with the universities on these things and saying that they can absolutely do this. And obviously, right, you had a choice. Right? You could not go to school, or you could go to a school that didn't require it. But the problem is there's all kinds of issues. For my older son, he goes to a Division III school. He's going to graduate. I mean, he's already got a job at Northwestern Mutual. I mean, the kid's, he's a rock star. But if he was to transfer to, say, ASU, which didn't require the vax, he'd essentially be a sophomore. They'd be like, we don't count these classes. This class doesn't count. That class doesn't. And that just doesn't make sense. So they're just forced into these terrible situations, and it really is. It's sad, and ultimately, like I said, we focus financially here. Believe me, there's a financial cost that we're going to pay for this, and we're seeing the banking system, the government, right, continue to dominate and take freedoms away from us, and really cause a system now we're completely dependent upon. And that's no way for a country to prosper, to be completely dependent upon the government for what they can do, say, money, all of those things. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. It's little things. Kind of, like we talked about for the colleges. Essentially, really backing kids into a corner. There was no choice. No reasonable choice, anyway. How about the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court now, of course, it takes forever. The CDC had been issuing moratoriums on evictions. Now, I don't know how the Center for Disease Control would even have that kind of an authority. And I think, let's face it, it was simply a way around the fact that they couldn't do it with our elected officials. That just wasn't going to happen. And executive order and all of those things weren't going to work because they knew that wasn't legal. So they go through the court system, and the courts just ruled that it was unconstitutional. That they don't have that power. And of course, the moratorium ended last week, right? So instead of it ending, and of course, right as Congress goes on vacation, the CDC issues another moratorium, in case you didn't know. That's going to last, I think, through October now, right? Again, why would anyone pay rent? Why pay? And now, this one's a little different. Now they're saying, well, we're just doing it in the areas where COVID's really bad. So I don't know, but again, law and order slipping away from us. And we can argue this, and this is the hard part. We can argue about, the COVID and this and that. There's always a reason why. Well, we got to take this freedom away because. Right? And we got to spend all of this money because. There's always a because. And let me tell you, the because usually, not always, but usually, hey, it's a pretty good argument. But here's what really has been happening, and you don't even know it. This is the reality of it. You don't even know it. Because they've got us so dumbed down that most people, and here's what's funny. This show, we've been doing this. Think about it. This show's been on 25 years. incredible. And we've got thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of listeners. We do. My podcast has been downloaded, I don't even know, over 1 million times. But the reality is, here's the reality. If you took everybody, every adult, and said, you need to listen to this show. First of all, that'd be terrible. Right? You should have the freedom to listen to what you want. But the vast majority, and I mean vast majority, would be like, oh my God, I don't want to listen to that. That guy's depressing. Right? I don't want to hear that. No. I want to know if Britney Spears is going to take her top off again. I want to know what's keeping up with the Kardashians. I want to listen to the sports station. Right? What are the Cardinals going to do this year? That's what I want to know. When are the Broncos going to get a good quarterback? Right? That's what I want to hear. They've got us so backwards. I mean, we're flawed people. We are. But we strive to be better. And now look at us. Look at like the Olympics. I don't even care about the Olympics. You know, the only thing I end up talking about in the Olympics to people is the people with the lack of respect. These, and again, I understand, hey, I want to make these statements, but the problem is what they're saying and what the actual facts are don't match. But nobody cares. We don't care about the truth anymore. Look at the media. Right? Listen, there's the Homer Democrat channels and the Homer Republican channels. And guess what? Neither one of them is telling you the truth. And this is exactly how they want it. We're a nation divided. And this is where most freedoms get lost. And for this show, it's your economic freedoms. Listen, this infrastructure bill is now the last I saw was 2,700 pages. And that's not the one that Janet Yellen was talking about yesterday. With all kinds of ridiculous things out there. You know, one of the pieces that's in there, they want automobile companies to, I don't know, I guess put breathalyzers in every car. So, hey, in order for the car to start, right, they got to tell you whether or not you're impaired or not. What I mean, again, oh, that sounds great. Really? And people just don't understand what the next step is. They don't get it. And you're not meant to get it. It was just like the Patriot Act. Got Patriot right in it. You know, you think about all the problems at the airports. Well, you can start with that act right there. Too big to fail. They were all outraged at how many people got destroyed by this. And this is, you know, things like 401ks, and we talk a lot about that here. And how you never really get the returns that the Wall Street shows and so on and so forth. But here's the reality. For most Americans, this boom and bust cycle, this cycle of massive taxation through inflation, Listen, they've been lying about inflation for a long time now, really since the 90s. It's been 30 years. You know, and new vehicles, we said, hey, hit a new all-time high. But if you look at the inflation index from the Federal Reserve over the last 25, as long as I've been, this company's been in business, longer than what I've been here. According to the central bank, there is no inflation in automobiles over this 25 years. None. How can that be? The average price of a new vehicle 25 years ago was like $14,000, $15,000. It's $41,000. And I'm telling you right now, that's a pretty crappy vehicle at 41. No offense, but I'm just saying. Right? That's the stripped down. You know what I'm talking about. And we've been dumbed down. And this is exactly what's happened. You know, people used to get upset over things. They would say, hey, we're not doing that. And we would stand up and say, no, not anymore. And now they've got, and it makes sense. They've taken over the education system. The central bank has ultimate authority. I mean, look at what Janet Yellen said yesterday. Man, if we don't spend this $3.5 trillion in what they call human infrastructure, what that just means is, hey, we're going to give money to people that we determine. That the United States will lose its standing. And of course, she made reference to the fact we're losing it now. And we need to do something. And I'm sitting there going, well, why are we losing it? Oh, wait, because you've been having this ridiculous policy about what? Hey, we need to be all powerful. We need to take away the freedoms of the right. You know what we need? We need opportunity. That's what we need. We need government to get out of the way. I'll use education because, you know what, jacked up, they talked about some educational stuff. I'll just break it down for you. We spent more. The problem with education, and again, I don't know that we really had a problem. We're more educated than we've ever been, which is exactly what they said we had to be. Of course, you know what we found out? We really didn't need to be that educated to do most of these jobs. But all the money we've spent, you know, I'll use myself as an example. I grew up in a small town, Jamesville. For those of you that don't know, Jamesville, DeWitt was the school district I was in, that I grew up in. And in 7th and 8th grade, 6th grade, you know, we went to the elementary school. Then you went to like the junior high school or the middle school, and then to the high school. We had, and this is in junior high, we had wood shop. Right? Our high school had auto mechanics. We had horticulture. I mean, we had so many different, obviously the wood shop, all of these things. Art class, music, band, all of these things. You showed up to school with a couple of pencils in your lunch. You know, a carton of milk was 5 cents when I was going to school. That was a carton of milk. I have no idea what it would be today. Doesn't matter. It's not my point. We spend so much more money today. And you don't get any of these things in high school. There's none of that. You know, I think the school my kids went to, they had a ceramics class where you made really bad ashtrays. I mean, that was really the extent. But you don't have it anymore. And if they do have it, you've got to pay for it. Right now, your kids have a list. Hey, by the way, here's all the stuff you need to bring to school. Toilet paper, paper towels, wipes, right? You need to bring your own markers, your own crayons, your own paper, your own, right? All of it. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, really the money doesn't go where they say it's supposed to go. It never does. And now here we are, watching all of this play out. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. I don't know. I mean, I know how much money they've spent. I know how much they've created out of thin air. I know how many people haven't paid their rent or their mortgage. I know how many people haven't paid their student loans. And yet somehow they're trying to tell us we've got economic prosperity. We've got anything but economic prosperity.
He was back.
800-951-0592. And, we're talking about people just not wanting to know what's happening. And I think it's really a product of the dumbing down that has been going on in this country for a generation. I mean, there's no way. And maybe I'm wrong, but there's no way this would have been happening 100 years ago. Just no way. People wouldn't have stood for it. And the problem that I have with all of it is we're focused on that. But we're not really seeing everything else that's happening. And I mentioned stuff like the Patriot Act, in Too Big to Fail, Dodd-Frank, and all the freedoms you thought you had are gone. They're gone. You don't know they're gone. And now we're seeing, what worries me most, what's going to come out of this human infrastructure bill. And have you been listening to what the central bankers have been saying? We talk about our education system and all this. Right? White is bad and stuff like that. That is baloney. But then you start looking at the legislation they're starting to write. It's all in there. Somehow, climate change, inequality, racism, Me Too, and LBGQ all are tied to the same exact problem. Yeah, that's what the legislation says. It's all the same problem. And the central bank and the government are going to fix it for us. And you won't even know it's happened. Because there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere for you to go to listen to really understand what's happening out there. Right? Because you're not going to get it from CNN. That's not the truth. You're not going to get it from Fox either. That's not the truth either. It's all propaganda. And it's just like the central bank talking about there's no inflation out there. I can tell you right now, as the earnings have been coming out, 85% of company earnings is talking about inflation. Massive inflation. A lot of companies like Clorox and Kimberly-Clark, how could they miss earnings? Right? I mean, Clorox products are barely on the shelves, right? I mean, they're gone. Because everything costs more. I tell you, Wolf Richter, he's a guy I go to his site every day. He does great research. And he writes about the dollar at least every month because he keeps track of the purchasing power of the dollar for us, right? Forget about the Fed and all that crap. He actually is trying the purchasing power. What your dollar bought 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, today, it's very clear. And the answer is a lot less. And now all of a sudden, we're seeing inflation like we haven't seen in decades. And he talks about stuff like Polaris, a Minnesota-based manufacturer. They make the Indian Chief motorcycle. They make snowmobiles. They make off-road vehicles, right? They raise their prices. A couple of months later, they have to raise their prices again. He talks about Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola and Kimberly Clark and General Mills and Unilever and many others. Basically, by the way, that's pretty much the entire supermarket outside of the meat and produce sections. It's saying how they all had announced price increases this year. And that all of them have announced that they're getting ready to raise prices again this year. So not one price increase, 2 price increases, some of them 3 price increases. All of them stating the rising cost of ingredients, the rising cost of packaging materials, the rising cost of transportation, the rising cost of wages. Inflation has been hotter than what we've been anticipating. Of course, because they don't listen to this show. Because I've been telling you all along, there was nothing was going to be transitory. But here's what he did that I liked this time. He used himself, which I love to use myself as examples. He used himself. And he's got his website, Wolf Street. If you guys want to start going to that site, great. I go there every day for you. But he started talking about what's happening to him. The cost associated with a dedicated server at the server farm. Hey, that's a great way to, like the 1360 website, the Patriot website, KXXT here in town's website. They get hosted by a third party. All of those costs have gone up. The cost of the email service, the cost of broadband service. And this is just his example. His broadband service doubled. I'll tell you, mine's tripled. He gives out beer mugs as thank you gifts for people that make donations, and generous donations, the word he uses, to his website. Right? So he does, he sells advertisements and then collects donations. And if you send out a good enough donation, he sends you a beer mug. All the cost around them have gone up. The cost of the mugs, the cost of shipping them on a pallet to my global headquarters, probably his house, but still pretty funny, right? So, first of all, the cost of the mugs went up. The cost to ship the mugs gone up. But I'm not done. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. And talking about inflation and understand what inflation is. It's the devaluation of your wealth, period. And we all could understand, if you had $100,000 in your 401k in 1980 and you were 65, you were set. you have $100,000 in your 401k and you're 65 today, you're in trouble. Period. You're in trouble. And we're talking about what's going to head next. I have a horrible feeling that things are going to get a lot more expensive first. We're not done. Wall Street's not done going up. Costs are not done going higher, right? You from houses to vehicles to all these things, the bubble's still going. And Janet Yellen wants to make sure it keeps going for a little while longer. Again, I don't know how much longer we have. I think sometime next year we're going to see a big change. That's why I tell everyone, go heavy now. Believe me, go heavy now into your hard assets. It's going to cost you less. But let's go back to Wolf Richter. He was talking about beer mugs. If you make a big enough donation, I don't know how much you have to make, but he'll send you a beer mug. And he says the cost of the mugs went up. He has them shipped. He buys it in bulk. So think about Costco. And, he's buying it in bulk. So he buys it cheaper. The cost to ship the pallet, gone up. The cost of shipping the individual beer mug has gone up. The cost of the cardboard boxes to put the beer mugs in, gone up. The cost of the filler that he uses to make sure the beer mug doesn't break in shipping has gone up. It's been an ongoing litany, he says. And of course he says, hey, there's nothing, he doesn't charge for his website. It's supported by the ads that are on there, and it's supported by donations. But essentially, at the end of the day, here's what he says. I have less. Period. My donations and what I get for my ads, let's just say they were constant. And I have no idea what it would be. But let's just say you made $100,000. Okay? It's pretty, right in the middle of middle class now. Right? Middle class, depending on where you live, is anywhere from 54 to 150 some thousand. Some places 250,000, but what he's saying is, I'm much poorer today than I was last year, the year before that, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And this is really what it's all about. When you really look at what's happening right now. According to the Federal Reserve, you've lost, if you had $100,000 income, inflation took 5% of it from you. Now, according to John Williams, it's been taken 13.5% from you. But every year they do this. And somehow they've got the mainstream media to get behind, hey, a little bit of inflation's fine, right? Remember the 2%, Janet Yellen, the big backer of this 2% inflation. No one talked about 2% inflation in the 80s or the 90s. There was no target. And of course, I told you when that came out, get ready. Because that's the low number. And believe me, it's going to be much higher than that. But when that comes, they're going to tell you that it's okay. So now think about, fast forward to today, 12 years later, 13 years later since this 2% target. Somewhere, and I want to say, what was the official number? 5.6%. Let's just say 6. So it's 3 times worse than what they said they wanted it to be. And what are they telling? It's okay. It's okay. It's just going to be transitory. Well, first there wasn't going to be any inflation. Then it was going to be transitory. Now it's like, well, it's been running hotter than we thought. Everything you touch, if you're a business owner, I know a lot of you business owners out there, you're all nodding your heads with me. Everything costs more. Everything. All of my websites cost more. Shipping, which we've now moved to FedEx, costs more. The boxes absolutely cost more. Way more. The shipping of the boxes, wow, is that expensive? Because they're big. You know, it takes up space, not heavy, just big. Patriot Radio News out. Wait till Wall Street figures out what's really happening with it. Get that gold put away before they do. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Gold's down $3. 1807. Tomorrow's the jobs number. And again, I think it'll be on the light side, but we'll wait and see. Silver, 25.35, down 10 right now. The Dow's up 170. And again, everything's just sitting here, right? The Dow right around, it's actually a little under 35,000, but right around 35,000, right? Gold hanging around. Gold's really in a tight range, 1795 to 1830, right? Silver, we're also pretty tight range, especially for silver. Tight range for silver is about $24.50 to $26. And everybody's waiting for, what is it going to be? Right? Is all of these prices going to come down, like the Fed said, or do we got to prepare for something else? And the reality is you better prepare for something else, because that's what's going to happen. Let me give you an example. We know inflation, right? 5-6%. How can a 10-year note yield 1.2? Well, the reason is the central bank is manipulating the bond market. They don't want price discovery, which tells you, well, why not? Why would they want to punish us like this? Think about it. Hey, I saved my money. I've got money left over. Well, we're just gonna take it through inflation. Why are they manipulating it? Because they know without the manipulation, it cannot stand. And this is why it's a house of cards. It's so easy to see. If it truly wasn't, right? The 10-year note would be yielding what, 7, 8, 9%? But it's not, because if it did, then everything else, the Dow wouldn't be 35,000, right? Car sales wouldn't be at all time, or car prices wouldn't be at all time record highs. Housing prices wouldn't be at all time record highs, right? All of this, none of this would be happening. And they're going to keep ignoring it, and that's why you need to get ready. Today, I got a really good special today. This is a $20 gold, all pre-1900. We've done these a few times. This is all going to be pre-1900, 1900 or older dates. If you buy 10, I'll give you 10 different dates, 10 different mint marks. The price, the same as our 20s are, $2,075. Nobody in the industry does this. When you do pre-1900 in gold, they always charge more. If you want multiple dates, they always charge more. 10 dates, they charge you way more. Not here. 2075. If you buy 10, you're going to get 10 different mint marks, which is really cool. You know, you think about there's only, about 34 years. Number of mint marks, probably double that for mint marks or whatnot. To get 10 different mint marks means you're going to get a lot of dates. You're going to get maybe 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. 800-951-0592. $20 gold pieces, all pre-1900, up to 10 different mint marks, $2,075 a piece today. God bless everybody. We'll be back tomorrow.